Today I have to make a new ironing board cover. Um, I was looking in some catalogs and online just to sort of get an idea of what a new cover costs today. Anywhere from $15 to $38, and any of those are outrageous. Ironing board covers are really easy to make. In fact, the only one I've ever bought is the one that came on my ironing board, like, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. So I'm going to show you how to make one really easy. The easiest way is, if you have a current one, is to take it off of your ironing board and to spread it on top of fabric or an old sheet. What else could you use? A single panel curtain panel. Cotton is best. You don't want any kind of synthetic fabrics, obviously, because when the iron touches synthetic, it will melt it. So you don't want any kind of melty anything. So stick with cotton or linen is good. And if you have a current one, you can just lay it down on the fabric. But I'm going to assume that you don't have a current ironing board cover, and I'm going to show you how to make one. So you can see that my ironing board cover is pretty worn out. It is stained from using starch, and obviously, I wash these frequently because my husband uses it almost every day to iron his clothes for work. And I have another one, but that one I have also patched, and so I really need to make a new one. So first of all, let's talk about the components. Most ironing board covers either have elastic or they have a drawstring. This one has a drawstring, and this probably came on my original one. I think today, the one I'm going to be making, I'm going to be putting some elastic in it just because I'm sort of tired of dealing with this. You can use any sort of string in your casing, and then you'll cinch it tight and tie it like this one's done, or you can use elastic, and that will also cinch it tight and tie it. You see I have another one I have under here that has a patch on it, which is really annoying when you are ironing your clothes. Your ironing board needs to have some sort of a pad. You can see the original one was like a very thin sponge, and they just didn't cut it. So I had some old, like it was an old, very thin flannel blanket, and I cut that, and it just laid it out on there. So it's gave a little padding to the metal ironing board that is on here. Okay, so what's the first thing we're going to do? So your ironing board cover will consist of the cover, which I'm going to show you how to make. It will consist of a casing, and if you've watched any of my reusable tea bag videos, I'm trying to do my reusable fabric gift bags. We made casings for all that. A casing is just a tunnel where a string or elastic goes through. So we'll be making a casing. We'll need either elastic or some sort of string or ribbon or something that will be used in the casing. This vintage fabric tablecloth that I made years ago when my kitchen used to be yellow and red and was like vintage 40s and 50s. Now it's pink, obviously. But I have this tablecloth that I made. The fabric is too faded to use as a tablecloth, but it's nice vintage fabric, and I really love the cute pattern, so I never really got rid of it. I just folded it up, washed it, folded it up, and I put it in my fabric stash. So that's what we're going to be using today. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to spread that on my floor with the pattern down. Then I'm just going to take my ironing board and I'm going to flip it upside down on my fabric. Now you can use a pen or a pencil or a crayon or whatever you want to trace around your fabric. You need fabric that's going to be at least the length of your ironing board plus about 3 to 4 inches, because remember we're going to have to be folding under an edge and making a casing, so it's going to need to be larger than your ironing board. So trace around it just to give yourself an idea of where it is. I'm just going to eyeball this, and I'm just going to cut around approximately 4 inches. Okay, when you get your fabric cut out, you want to just flip your ironing board back over. Lay it back on the ironing board and make sure you've cut it right so you have enough space in your fabric on your ironing board to form a casing. And then now we're going to go sew that casing. For the casing, you should have ready either some elastic, and I'm using thin elastic. You can pin the edges if you want. I'm just going to fold mine around about a 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to just go around and I'm going to zigzag the whole thing here, just to get the raw edges turned, so when we turn it under in the casing, the raw edges are going to be taken care of. Okay, and you can do this as neat or disorderly as you want. I'm about getting things done, and this does not have to be like some kind of super awesome looking thing. I just want this to cover my board. So I've turned on all the edges and I just zigzagged them. That's all I did. Okay, now we need to turn it over again because we're going to make the casing. Trim off some loose threads here. First of all, you need to decide which end you want to have the opening at, where the casing, and usually that's going to be not the pointy end, not the narrow end, but the fat end. So I am going to turn it over about an inch, inch and a half, and I use the top of my finger. It's almost exactly an inch from the top of my finger to right underneath the fold. So the first bend of my first top digit there. So that's how I gauge roughly when something doesn't have to be exact. So I'm going to sort of find the middle. I'm going to do a straight stitch here. And I'm going to sew around and make a casing or a small tunnel where my elastic, or if you're using a string, is going to fit. If you see me tug on my fabric, I may have said this in another video, don't do that if there's nothing wrong with your machine. My machine, my feeder is going out. I'm hoping to get a new machine for Christmas. And so sometimes it just decides it's going to stop feeding, so I just have to gently tug or just put some pressure on this side of it so it will continue to feed. So if you see me doing that, that is not the correct way to sew. It's just that's what I have for a machine right now, and I have to deal with it. I do have the other older machine, but it is, like I said before, I think it's wired to be used as with your knee instead of your foot. And that wreaks havoc on my hip, so I don't use it too often. It's more I'm teaching my daughter, who has cerebral palsy, how to use it because she needs something other than her foot. So that's the reason why that. So here we go. We're going to make our casing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just folding it over about an inch to an inch and a half, and straight stitching a little tunnel. Now if your fabric has a little bit more give to it, it will be a little easier to get around those turns. This fabric has absolutely no give to it. Alright, I'm back at where I started my tunnel, so I want to make sure that I'm leaving about a finger's width in your tunnel right there, so you don't want to sew there. So you need to go in and out of your tunnel, obviously. Okay, so you can see we have the little tunnel made, our little casing. And so what I'm going to go measure the ironing board, and we're going to cut a piece. Like I said, I'm going to use elastic on this one. So I'm going to take my elastic in there. Also need a couple safety pins. Bigger ones work better. So an easy way to measure, you can get real precise and get out your measuring tape and everything. But what I just do is I'm going to use one of my pins to just hold my elastic to the end of my padding here. And I'm going to loosely go around the entire board, my elastic. Now this is not going to be my measurement. This is just going to tell me how big the board is. And I'm not stretching it, I'm not pulling on it, I'm just loosely going around to see how, okay. So that is how big my ironing board is. Now obviously I don't want, it's elastic, so I want it to stretch and pull. So I don't want to use the exact measurements of my board. So what I'm going to do is take out approximately a foot off of this. And now that is the piece that I'm going to use. Now the first thing I want to do is take one of the ends, doesn't matter which one. I'm going to put my safety pin on there. I'm going to secure it. I'm going to find one end of my little tunnel, my little casing that I left unsewn. And I am going to just pin it to the outside. That way, it will keep it from totally disappearing in there, being pulled through. On the other end, I'm going to use a slightly larger one because this is the one I want to feel through the fabric. I'm going to put it on there twice. So that way, if it rips or something happens in there, I'm not going to lose it entirely. Now this end, I'm going to insert into the casing, and I'm going to feed it in. The best way to do that is just push the pin through and pull the fabric after it, and your elastic will start to go, or your cord if you're using a string or cord, or you can be recycling the cord that was on the previous ironing board cover. So you can get to doing it pretty fast. Push and pull until you're going to keep going until your elastic comes out the other end of the case. Okay, when your safety pin comes out the hole, you have got it all the way through. Very carefully undo your one and just secure that one safety pin so you got both ends hooked together, just like this. So you don't want to lose either end of your elastic in your casing. So now you're going to find your skinny end of your cover. Go ahead and put it on the end of your ironing board. Like that. Don't worry about the elastic being bunched up or anything right now. Right now we're just getting it on the ironing board. We'll fix all that in a minute. Stretch it all the way down, smooth it out. Now is when the time you can look at your elastic. Mine seems to be just a little loose. So this is where I'm going to take my two ends and I'm just going to pull that elastic until I think it feels tight. And then just tie a knot. Now I'm not going to cut my elastic. Use that same pin. Just going to secure the elastic together so it's just not falling all over the place. And then I'm just going to sort of stick it up in there in the end somewhere. And there's the ironing board cover. So that was an easy ironing board cover to make. And there's no point buying anything new. So I hope this has been helpful. And this has been Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm. Bye.